couple of years ago, I made a 10 tips for backcountry camping video. It seems that a lot of people have been watching it, especially recently. There seems to be a lot more people going out backcountry camping and looking for info on that. So I thought it was time to do a bit of a follow-up video with maybe some more tips, some do's, some don'ts, and just things that you need to know if you're gonna go backcountry camping. Obviously, what I do on this channel is promote the outdoors. I'm encouraging people to get out there, get outside, do some camping, exploring, anything outdoors. And that's great. I think people should do that. The downside is there seems to be a lot more people doing it now. So it's getting very busy out there. The other downside is there seems to be a lot more people that don't quite know what they're doing. So hopefully this video will help give you some ideas on what you should be doing if you are going into the backcountry. First, if you have never been backcountry camping before, talk to people that have, learn from people that have, maybe even go with somebody who has some experience. It's very different than car camping. You're not just pulling up in your car and setting up a tent at a campsite. You are actually either backpacking or canoeing with all of your gear into the backcountry, setting up camp at a designated site and having to deal with everything that you have to deal with out there. You need to know how to be prepared for all different kinds of weather. You need to know how to get water that you can drink. You need to know how to store your food, how to set up a shelter properly. So there's a lot more things to consider, plus the fact that you are carrying every single thing that you need with you. So be prepared is what I'm getting at there. Find somebody who knows what they're doing, talk to them, or like I said, go out with them if you can for your first time. Having said that, a lot of us who are experienced backcountry campers did learn the hard way and did go out knowing nothing about it before. But why not learn from other people's mistakes rather than have to make all those mistakes yourself? There's certain things it's better to not have to go through the hassle of things like overpacking, packing way too much food, having way too much weight to carry with you. Learn from people before you go. It's very important that you know where you are going. So this means looking at the maps, understanding how far it is to get to where you want to camp in the backcountry. If it's backpacking, how far can you actually hike in a day? And consider that you're now hiking with a backpack full of all your gear on your back. That makes a big difference. It really does slow you down. If I'm just going for a day hike with no pack or just a light little day pack, I can hike easily 6-7 kilometers an hour. With a backpack fully loaded, that's going to be cut at least in half. So just be aware of that. You can't go as far as you can with no gear. Same when you're canoeing. You've got to take into account how far you're paddling, what kind of weather you're going to be paddling in. If there's wind against you, that's going to slow you down. Also, do you have to portage? How many portages are you going to do? Are you going to carry everything in one go, all your gear and your canoe in one go, or are you going to do multiple trips? Keep in mind, if you do 2 trips, that's actually 3 times walking that portage. So you've got to be aware of these things. They all add time. So you got to make sure you know where you're going and know that you can actually get there. Many of us will be camping in provincial parks or national parks. They have varying ways of reserving your sites, but you should be aware of that. Some, like Algonquin Provincial Park, you book the lake. You don't book by the site. So there may be 5 campsites available on a lake. You're booking one of those, and they are first come, first serve. So there may be some really good sites on that lake, but there may be some that aren't quite as nice. And if you show up late, or if some people are already there, you're not necessarily going to get the best site on the lake. There are some where you actually do book by the site, and they have site numbers that you're actually booking the actual site. That's great because you know you're getting the site you want. Also not so great if you've never been there before and you don't know what the sites look like. You're just going to have to guess and hope that the one you've picked is actually a really good site. But also, knowing how the reservation system works prevents you running into awkward encounters. This spring, I was camping on Rain Lake, and it was about 6:30 in the evening. We had got there early. We had got this amazing site. There's a beautiful site on an island. And this canoe pulled up with this couple in it, and they're like, "Excuse me, I think you're on our campsite." And I'm like, "No, we got here. This is our site." They're like, "No, I booked this particular site." It's like, "No, in Algonquin Park, you book by the lake, not by the site." Now, she was adamant that she had booked it. If you actually look on the reservation website, where you actually pick that lake is actually on the island, so I can understand her confusion. But what that meant for them was, they had to go find the one remaining site that was open. The lake was full that night. All the sites were taken except for one, which I believe was right back at the beginning of the lake. So they paddled all the way down the lake thinking that they had this site reserved when they really didn't. So if you understand how the reservation system works, you'll avoid awkward encounters like that. I want to talk a little bit about water for a minute. Obviously, you want to have clean water to drink. You can bring some with you if you like, but water is heavy, so you're not going to be able to carry enough for maybe one day, let alone a multi-day trip. So you're going to have to get water out of the lakes and the rivers, or rain, and you got to be able to filter that or clean it in some way. So there's a number of ways you can do that. You can boil it. Bring the water to a roiling boil for 10-15 minutes. Let it cool, and you've got water that you can drink. There's all sorts of different kinds of filters, ones that use a pump to filter through. I personally like my gravity-fed one. You fill a bag, and it's got a filter inside, and you just hang it in a tree, and there's a hose that comes out the bottom, and you just open the valve, and the water pours out into your bottle. I find that the easiest. There's also other kinds where you fill one bag, it filters through to another bag, so you can get your water prepped that way. There's ones that you actually suck through like a straw with a filter. But be aware that you should filter your water. Even the cleanest water can have bacteria or parasites in it, and you really don't want to be getting sick and ruining your trip by drinking water that wasn't clean. One of the joys of camping is sitting around a campfire, whether it's just to sit around and enjoy the ambience of that, or whether it's going to be for cooking your food. Be aware of the rules in the park that you're in. If you're camping, front country camping at a car camping, you are not allowed to gather wood out of the forest. There'd be too many people doing that. There'd be no wood left, so you have to buy wood in that case. In the backcountry, you will be gathering wood, but you have to gather dead wood. Do not cut down living trees or branches. Standing dead wood is some of the best. If there's a dead standing tree that you can knock over, great. If there are dead branches, great. If there's dead sticks on the ground, fantastic. Live wood doesn't burn well anyway, but you should be using dead wood only, and don't mess up the forest by trying to get live wood. It's not good. Also, make sure you set up a campfire in designated areas. If you're backcountry camping in a provincial park or a national park, there are usually designated campsites with a fire pit of some sort. Use the fire pit. Don't go making your own. You're just risking setting fire to other things. Also, very important with campfires, make sure that they are dead out when you leave them. Now, this could be when you're going to bed for the night, or if you're leaving the campsite for the day, or when you leave the campsite when you're done. Make sure you've put that fire out completely. Douse it with water, whatever you need to do to make sure that there is no heat left in it and it's not gonna, flare up again. Just the beginning of the summer, I was camping in Killarney Provincial Park, and we had paddled into OSA Lake. It was about a 10-12K paddle with a couple of portages to get in there. No cell service on the lake. On our way out, we noticed smoke on one of the little islands. A little island which does not have a campsite on it. And there was a fire. The smoke got bigger, the fire got bigger. It seemed to have been caused by somebody deciding to stop on the island for lunch, make a little campfire, not in a not in a fire pit, and obviously did not put it out properly before they left. So this fire started to spread. It was spreading fast. You know, when we got there, I thought, oh, maybe we can put some water on it. But no, the flames were like 3-4 feet high, up the side of trees, burning through the brush on the ground. We had to paddle out a good hour and a half before we were able to get into cell service to be able to call it in. And then they did send in some crews to put out the fire. But I mean, that was on an island. I mean, it probably seriously impacted that little island. But it was quite windy. Embers could have very easily been blown from that onto the rest of the mainland, and you could have had a major forest fire. So please be careful. Don't have fires where you're not supposed to. Make sure that they're dead out when you're done with them. And pay attention to fire bans. If there's a fire ban, if it's really dry, do not have a fire. That's why you have a stove. If you need to cook, you use your stove. It's also important to know what you are allowed to bring out with you into the backcountry. Most of the parks do not allow glass bottles or cans of any kind. The reason is that it just becomes litter, and you don't want to have litter out there. If you are responsible and you're going to carry it out, well, then you've got to carry it out. So better to use refillable bottles, like an Nalgene water bottle, a stainless steel water bottle. If you have any other packaging, if it's burnable, great, burn it. If not, pack it out with a little garbage bag. So obviously the less you have to pack out, the better, but please don't litter. That brings me to something else. There has been this year, it seems, unfortunately, and I don't know why, a lot more people littering and just not taking care of campsites in the backcountry as well as front country. I really don't know why people think it's okay to litter, but there are many examples in the provincial parks, in the national parks, in the conservation areas, or just outside in general, of people leaving entire garbage bags full of stuff lying around. Don't do that. Don't go camping in the backcountry if you're going to bring a lot of garbage with you and leave it there. There is no point to that. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're not the kind of person that's going to do that anyway. But if you know anyone that does, I can't fathom why anybody would do that, but people do seem to be doing that. So don't litter. You've got to either burn garbage or carry it out with you. And if you see other garbage there that people left behind, pack that out too. They should be practicing leave no trace camping, which means you go to a campsite, there should be no trace that you were ever there when you leave. Do know how to use your gear. I'm sure everybody's done this. You've got a new piece of gear that you're excited to try, and you're going camping and you just take it out there with you, and you get out there and you have no clue how to use it. Whether it's a tent, you don't know how to set it up. Let's say a water filter, you're not quite sure how to use it. Test it out before you go. You should know how to use your gear before you get out there and need to use it. So that's a good tip. Definitely test out your gear beforehand. Trust me, I learned from experience there. Know how to do basic campcraft, like tying knots, using ropes, setting up a tarp. The more you know, sort of instinctively from practice, the easier time you're going to have when you're out there. There's nothing worse than trying to set up a tarp and you don't know how to tie a knot on a rope. You can't get it to get around a tree, or you can't do it quickly and rain is coming. So learn some basic campcraft before you go out there. It's gonna make things way easier for you. Do explore. You're out in the backcountry. It's amazing out there. Go exploring. If you see a nice little windy creek that you think you can paddle down, go down it. If there's a trail that goes off somewhere and you want to explore where it goes, follow it. Nothing wrong with exploring, but just also be respectful of nature. Don't go damaging sensitive areas. Don't harass wildlife. That's not good. But do have a good time and do explore. That's all part of the joy of being out in the backcountry. Food, okay. Food can be tricky. A lot depends on how long you're going for. A lot depends on what time of year it is. And what kind of backcountry camping you're doing. Are you in a canoe? Do you have a lot of portages? Are you backpacking everything in? That will sort of dictate how much you're able to carry with you. So if I'm going on a canoe trip where I have either no or very minimal portages, I will probably pack more food, or food that takes up more space, maybe requires more preparation, something like maybe a steak or some burgers, something that I'm going to be cooking at night, something that I might need to keep cold and want to keep in a cooler bag. Versus if I'm backpacking, there's no way I'm taking a cooler bag with me with frozen items in there, because that's just not going to fit in the backpack. So if you are taking things that you need to keep cold, usually those are the things you'll eat on the first day. Something like, I don't know, if you took hot dogs with you, freeze them ahead of time, even not in a cooler bag, you might be able to get away with having them on the second night as well. You just cook them really well. But be aware of the climate that you're in. If it's going to be really, really hot, if it's like 30 degrees, then taking food that's got to stay cold for multiple days, it's not going to work. Likewise in the winter, if you're camping in the winter time, be aware that your food will freeze. It's also very important to know how to store your food. You're in the backcountry. There are plenty of animals sharing that backcountry with you. And not just big ones like bears, I mean that's what most people think of, but there are smaller animals, pine martens, squirrels, raccoons, all sorts of animals that want to have your food as well. So you've got to know what to do with that food, how to store it. Do not store it in your tent. You're just going to be attracting animals. You really don't want to have a bear visiting you at night in your tent. So animals like bears can smell incredibly well. So even though you may not be able to smell something, they will definitely smell it. And if you have it in your tent, that's where they're going to be coming. So generally I hang my food. So I either have a bear barrel. They're kind of misleading. Bears can get into them. They're not meant to just be sitting around, but they'll make it harder for them to get in. Might help hide some of the smells. So either use a barrel or a dry bag, which I hang from a tree. If you're going to hang your food, it's got to be on a branch a good distance. If you want to make sure the bag itself is hanging at least 8 feet off the ground, maybe more, and a good meter or two actually probably at least 2 meters from the trunk of the tree, so that anything that's climbing up can't reach the food bag as well, and a good meter down from the branch that it's hanging on, which will help prevent things like squirrels and smaller animals from just reaching or climbing straight down and getting it, or a bear from reaching down from that branch and pulling up your food. You don't want to lose your food either, so even if it isn't because bears are around, you don't want to be losing your food to smaller animals. I have lost food before. I had a pine marten steal some pizza which I had left out on top of my food bag to thaw, because I had frozen it the night before and I was going to have it for dinner. It was gone really quickly. It didn't take long. Just look the other way and then all of a sudden, where's my pizza? It's gone. I've also lost food in a bag I've hung because I've hung it too close to the branch and squirrels got into it. So learn how to hang your food properly and store it properly. Even if you're going away from the campsite to do some exploring for the day, don't leave your food down on the ground. Animals will get into it. So know what to do with your food. That's very important, otherwise you're going to lose it. Do be prepared for different kind of weather. Even if it says it's going to be sunny, there's always a chance it's going to rain. So be prepared for that, whether you take rain gear with you so you have something waterproof to wear, at the very least a a second set of clothes that you keep dry. That you might want a tarp if you're expecting rain to give yourself a place to be sheltered from the rain. But just be aware that weather can change, and you want to have the right clothing for that. Also have something to keep warm, even if it's in the summer. Some evenings can get quite cool, so be prepared with something warmer to wear. It's no fun when you're cold. It's that balance of how much do you want to carry in terms of extra clothing and what you're going to need to keep yourself warm and dry. But definitely something to consider. Think about rain, think about cold. You don't want to be suffering from the elements. I canoe a lot, so most of my backcountry camping trips are canoe trips. So I'm fairly experienced in a canoe. I know what I'm doing. But if you've never been in a canoe before, again, go with somebody who has if you can. If not, make sure you learn a little bit about using a boat before you go out there. First, you're gonna need to have all the safety gear. You've gotta wear a PFD. I mean, the rules say you have to have one in the boat, but it is useless if it is not on you if you fall into the water. It's also useless if you leave it open and don't zip it up or clip it up however it attaches. It's just gonna fall off you, or it's just gonna get in the way. It's gonna be useless. So use your personal flotation device and use it properly every time you're out on the water. Also, other safety gear you're gonna need in a canoe or a kayak, you're gonna have to have a bailing bucket, you're gonna have to have a whistle, a throw rope. So make sure you have those things. They are required by law, actually, so you could actually be ticketed if you don't have that gear with you. Likely, if you're renting a canoe, they will provide that stuff for you. But be aware that you are required to have it, and it's a good idea to have it anyway. Also, an extra paddle. If you break a paddle, you're gonna want to have an extra paddle, and have it handy. Don't bury it at the bottom of your canoe underneath all the gear. It should be on top where you can reach it, because if you break your paddle, now what are you doing? You might be in a position where, I mean, it's not going to break when you're just casually paddling down a lake. It's going to break when you're in some need, whether it's you've got to paddle into hard winds or you're in a river, whatever. So you got to have easy access to that extra paddle. So, and finally, do have a good time. Do take photos. Do take video. You're out in the backcountry. It's an amazing place to be. It's great to have memories in pictures and in video. So definitely do that. But don't make that the be-all and end-all. I film most of my trips. I have actually in the last little while not filmed a couple, just because I find I'm becoming more sort of feel like I have to film everything, and it's sort of getting in the way of enjoying the trip. So film by all means. I film, a lot of people film, a lot of people take photos, but don't let it get in the way of you having a good time and enjoying the trip. Stop every now and then and just take in the scenery, take in where you are, and experience what it's like to be out there in nature and having a good time. Thank you so much for watching our videos. Please like and subscribe. We'd love to have you on the channel.